Back at you with more tech gadgets for your desk for under 50 bucks on Amazon. Part 3.
So of all the gadgets I have at my desk, this thing's probably the most used of them all, as well as one of the most affordable at around 25 bucks, and that's this little electric screwdriver. So this little guy here is incredibly simple. You have 3 buttons, one to drive the screw head in, one to drive it out, and one to turn on this nice little light here to illuminate anything you're working on. Also comes with this really nice selection of bits that includes a lot of the rare security bits that you often need when you're tinkering on small projects. All of the bits are magnetized as well, which is an absolute must-have when you're working with tiny screws like this. Operating this thing is super simple. You really use it like you would a normal screwdriver, pushing the in button when you want to screw the screws in and the out button when you want to screw the screws out. It's really quick and it has a ton of torque and can handle most jobs that you have for this thing. It also can be used as a manual screwdriver without any intervention if the battery dies or if you just need to give it a little bit more oomph than the battery can drive. Speaking of battery, this thing charges up in a few hours with the USB-C port on the back, and I found it has about a 5-hour battery life before I need to recharge it. So I won't go as far as saying this thing's an absolute must-have for everybody, but if you're like me and you're tinkering on small projects, not only is this thing just so much more enjoyable to use, but it actually saves a ton of time. Those little tiny screws with the huge threads, you sometimes spend hours if there's a bunch of them on a little project you're working on. This thing just buzz, in, out, and you're done. If you guys want to cop one of these finger savers for yourself, I'll leave a link to them in my bio on Amazon. Like I said, last I checked, they're about 25 bucks, so pretty easy cop for your little desk setup. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate all of you. So I got this comment on my last video where I showed you guys this custom smart home connected bed sensor that I built. I get these comments quite frequently on some of my more obscure smart home videos, and I don't blame you guys for the skepticism. Some of this stuff is really hard to grasp, so I'm going to use this as an opportunity to show you guys exactly how this stuff works and maybe help clear up some skepticism as well as teaching you guys some things along the way. So let's dive into it. So for those who haven't seen my last video, this is a sensor I put under my mattress that I use to detect when I'm in bed or out of bed, and then I have a bunch of smart home automations that trigger based on that. So first things first, I bought this pressure sensitive pad on eBay. This thing is normally meant to be tied in with an alarm system, and it's meant to detect when people are coming and going when you put it under your doormat. I bought it because I thought I could reverse engineer it and maybe connect it to my smart home. So when I first bought this thing, I had 4 wires coming off of it. After some quick digging, I learned that these 2 wires pretty much act as a switch. So when there's pressure on the pad, the switch turns on. When there's pressure taken off the pad, the switch turns off. That was a great start. I then need to figure out how to take that information and eventually translate it into Apple HomeKit, my smart home. So the next step is to figure out how to get that on-off data and get it connected to my home network. Then after that, I could eventually connect that data to my smart home. The easiest way I thought to do this was using this thing. It's called the Wemos D1 Mini. It's a really cheap development board that has the ability to connect to the internet. What I did is I took one of these boards, wired the on-off wires to it, then I jumped on the computer and figured out a way to get this coded up to recognize that on-off data and then connect it to the internet. Let me show you that. So I got this thing hooked up to my computer, the wires hooked up to the switch, and then I ended up using a piece of software called ESP Home to code this. I know this looks like gibberish, but I'll break it down for you. Basically, all I did was define the type of sensor that I want it to show up as, a motion sensor, named it my bed occupancy sensor, defined what pin number it's hooked up to on the board, and then I put in something really important. I put a delayed off signal. This means if pressure comes off the pad, it won't actually turn off for 2.3 seconds. That means when I'm tossing and turning at night, it won't quickly turn on and off, on and off, on and off. The pad will only turn off once it's had 2 seconds of pressure taken off it. So I actually have this running live now on my computer here in the terminal, and you'll see it'll actually show up here. When I push down on the pad, the bed occupancy sensor turns on. When I take my hand off, in a few seconds here, 2.3 is precise, it will turn off. And just like that, we have a working sensor connected to the internet. Now we just need to hook it up to our smart home. So to get this data, which we now have on our network and registering the on-off signals onto Apple HomeKit, which is notoriously hard to get unauthorized devices on, we need to use a piece of software called HomeBridge. This basically is a bridge software running on a Raspberry Pi that I have in my bedroom that will connect this sensor to, and then that bridge is going to connect to our Apple HomeKit. I defined all the sensor's parameters, the IP address that thing is running on, and what type of data it could expect, and we should be up and running in Apple's HomeKit. So we're here in Apple HomeKit. You can see I now have a motion sensor in my bedroom, and when we put pressure on the pad, that motion sensor gets triggered. And when we take our hand off in 2.3 seconds, that motion sensor stops. And then we can automate everything from there. Thanks for watching.